Midday in the Queen City, business is booming. We are tracking job cuts. More businesses are going beaver crazy, and Cincinnati history on film. Let's do lunch. Cincinnati is a city that means business. Fortune 500 company HQs, renowned institutions like Children's Hospital and the Cincinnati Zoo, and letters that everyone here knows: TQL, GE, CVG, UC, and X. It's also a city that's large enough for new ideas to take root and grow. You know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and you're in business. I'm Jack Crumley, and this is The Working Lunch. Hello, welcome to The Working Lunch. It's a casual Friday here on The Crown. This is our hour-long Cincinnati business show where we bring you headlines about what local companies are doing. We bring you exclusive interviews with CEOs and local leaders. And we try to squeeze in a bite to eat, maybe something to drink before you go back to face the afternoon. Again, happy Friday. Glad to have you here. Before we get going with Cincinnati business headlines, I do want to start out. This just hit in the last couple of hours. The jobs report just came out for the month of July. Non-farm payrolls unexpectedly dropped in the month of July. 23,000 jobs cut amid 53,000 government positions that were lost as well. The Dow Jones was expecting a gain of 83,000 jobs, so this is a little bit of a surprise. Labor force participation rate fell under 61.4%. That's the lowest in more than 5 years. Just wanted to touch on that first, as that just came in this morning, and a bit of a surprise for the U.S. economy. Cincinnati business headlines presented by First State Bank, built on belief and committed to doing right by our communities. First State Bank offers checking, savings, and mortgage services all from your phone. They believe in this community. They believe in you. Visit FSB4me.com. That's First State Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. And piggybacking off of that news that we just had that came out this morning, in the business of news, Cincinnati-based EW Scripps has announced in a company-wide memo posted on LinkedIn by CEO Adam Simpson, 268 jobs in Scripps are being cut. In that memo, he says that Scripps is being refounded for a modern audience. He says that's going to be in a way that's sustainable for today's media marketplace. Part of that transformation for Scripps is to start 24/7 local news streams that are tailored to individual markets. Those require a different model than traditional broadcasting. This change and adding in those local news streams will apparently start in smaller cities first and then grow from there. Simpson's statement says that the goal is to strengthen connection in communities. He says this will increase the depth of coverage. EW Scripps has about 6 TV stations, including WCPO 9 News here in Cincinnati. It is unclear how these expected cuts are going to affect the local office. This could be a rollout with more to come. Meantime, jobs are being changed, maybe not lost exactly, at some local hospitals. The Business Courier with details on how UC Health is choosing to not renew its contract with food service and cleaning management company Sodexo after just a year-long contract. UC Health going back with its previous contractor, Compass Healthcare. The Sodexo workers who've been handling food and cleaning at both UC Medical Center and Westchester Hospital will be able to apply with Compass to keep that work going. It's about 500 people working under the Sodexo contract, but now again, they have an opportunity to go to Compass. Sodexo says it is working with UC Health and Compass for a seamless transition. A new flight option has been announced at CVG, the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International Airport. United Airlines is set to start running daily non-stop service to San Francisco starting in October. Local leaders with some comments in that announcement saying that will support economic development work that's being done and improve access to both domestic and international markets. The new route made possible in part through the Jobs Ohio Air Services Restoration Program, which is a program that encourages commercial airports to retain and restore air service through private-public partnerships. So we will have to see how popular this new flight offering is and whether enough people choose to buy tickets for it to make it self-sustaining. Checking in on the latest headlines in the Buc-ee's Beaver Battle of Ohio, with the Buc-ee's gas station and bathroom chain continuing to have a lawsuit pending. Dayton area Beaver's Mini Mart being sued in federal court over its allegedly similar logo. Lots of businesses changing their logos to Beavers in support of the Mini Mart. We told you about that before. I did find this today. Dayton area attorney Doug Mann, a.k.a. the Tiger, of the law firm Dyer, Garofalo, Mann, and Schultz, with some obviously AI-generated promotional art. That's not the point here. Doug Mann apparently choosing to not be the Tiger anymore. Take a look.
If you've been injured by a large corporation coming after a little guy, you need the Beaver on your side. At Dyer, Garofalo, Mann, and Schultz, we stand up to big corporations every single day, and we don't back down. Because when the other side has all the resources, you deserve someone to fight for you.
Get the Beaver on your side. Call 222-2222.
Okay. The GoFundMe for Beaver's Mini Mart continues. Checking in on the money that has been donated to Beaver's Mini Mart. It is over 47 grand. As of this morning, there we go, 46 approaching 47 grand. Also means closing in on $50,000 in donations to help with legal fees from this federal lawsuit. Lots of support going on there. Also, remember, CincyShirts.com is selling shirts and hats, with part of the proceeds going to support Beaver's Mini Mart. All that being said, Jack's Big Bite is where we focus on one particular story or topic in our community, a community we believe in with our partners at First State Bank. Stop into one of their local branches or visit online at fsb4me.com to access all the helpful tools and services at First State Bank, built on belief and committed to doing right by our communities. For today's Big Bite, presented by First State Bank, thinking about the federal lawsuit that Buc-ee's has filed against Beaver's Mini Mart, we're going to go into some other notable business lawsuits that we have seen in the Cincinnati area. People make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes hurt people, and sometimes those mistakes are made by people who represent companies. The good news on this is that we do have a court system that hears things impartially to make sure that justice is done and that those mistakes aren't made again, whether that's in criminal or civil court. That's our system. We are going to start with a pretty heavy one, but just stay with me. This is a fairly current event. A pregnant worker at Total Quality Logistics requested to work from home in 2021 because of doctor's orders for bed rest after a recent surgery. The company denied that request and put her on unpaid leave. So, the way the story has been described, she started working in the office again. The law firm Ogletree Deakins says that about 2 weeks after that, TQL reconsidered and granted her work-from-home status. But then that same day, the employee went into premature labor and gave birth to a baby that did not survive. It's an unthinkable tragedy. A lawsuit from that was filed in 2023, and just this past March, a jury awarded her over $22 million though it did turn down the request for punitive damages, saying that's not an option for wrongful death cases like that. Punitive damages are punishment. The company in that case is allowed to appeal. This is a complicated one going back now to 2024. That is when the owners of Prime downtown, a steakhouse in the downtown area, the owners of that filed suit against a pair of former managers, accusing Nelson and Carol Castillo of embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars from the restaurant. Cincinnati Restaurant Holdings says that that pair used the money that they allegedly embezzled to take vacations and pay for other restaurants, including Primo Italian Steakhouse in Middletown. That's a spot that closed down in 2025. And the Castillos did make public statements saying that they had been defamed and attacked, a counterclaim being planned. Based on the Hamilton County Clerk of Court's website, it does look like the trial in that case is set to start early next year. Some other notable restaurant lawsuits to tell you about. Got to go back a little bit.
We're celebrating 75 years of Frisch's goodness. Get the party started with our Frisch's Big Boy or Super Big Boy. Lettuce, pickles, 2 fresh grilled patties, cheese, and tartar sauce. Oh, the tartar sauce. It doesn't get much better than this, or does it?
Buy one Big Boy or Super Big Boy and get one for 75 cents. Find the deal in the Frisch's app. Available for dine-in, carry-out, drive-thru, and on Frisch's.
God, that looks so good. Makes me crazy to think about how things went bad with Frisch's. It's a shame. Frisch's Big Boy was bought by private equity in 2015. And as we've seen so many times, that firm then sold the land that dozens of Frisch's locations were sitting on and then leased the land back to the restaurants on really rigid terms. After the height of the COVID pandemic, when we saw a spike in inflation as markets snapped back, along with a change in the way people eat, staffing, and more, Frisch's found itself millions of dollars behind in rent by late 2024. At that same time, Frisch's found itself way behind on unpaid invoices, and vendors started lining up to sue. Reporting from back in late 2024 says that Frisch's had unpaid bills with a New Jersey food supplier, a coffee company out of Florida, and more. By early 2025, there was a meat company filing suit alleging financial harm for Frisch's failing to pay for goods supplied, and also for Frisch's allegedly prioritizing certain creditors over others. The whole thing was a legal mess. Even FC Cincinnati sued Frisch's, saying that it was owed more than $150,000 for an unpaid sponsorship contract. It's also not all past tense. Even now, Frisch's Big Boy is still facing legal complaints. $11 million in unpaid rent stemming from that leaseback agreement. I'm sure that the Big Boy restaurants that are non-Frisch's locations are just thrilled about that. And finally, this one's shocking as well.
The Ohio Supreme Court ruled that boneless chicken wings can legally have bones in them. I'm not joking. In 2016, a man named Michael Berkheimer was at a restaurant. He ordered his usual boneless wings, and then he felt something go down wrong. 3 days later, he's in the ER with 105-degree fever. A bone over an inch long lodged in his esophagus. It tore through the wall, and that led to a massive infection around his heart and lungs, multiple surgeries, 2 medically induced comas, and permanent damage to his heart, lungs, and diaphragm. He found a lawyer and sued the restaurant because he ordered boneless wings. Now, the case goes all the way to the Ohio Supreme Court, and in a 4-3 decision, they ruled against him. The majority of the court said boneless wings is a cooking style, not a guarantee, the same way chicken fingers doesn't mean you're actually eating fingers. What are we doing here?
That is attorney Mike Raffi of the Raffi Law Firm giving that summary of that story. I do want to give a little more context on it, though. This goes back to 2016 when Mike Berkheimer, his wife, and some friends were at a restaurant in Butler County. Mike ordered his usual boneless wings with Parmesan garlic sauce, which is an excellent choice, and he did feel something go wrong with one of his bites of food. That led to a fever. He eventually went to the doctor to find a chicken bone in his esophagus, causing a tear and an infection. You saw that pic of Mike in the hospital from that time. Berkheimer, though, didn't just sue the restaurant. He sued the restaurant. He also sued the company that supplied the chicken and the farm in Butler County where the chicken came from, alleging that their negligence led to his injuries. There were lower courts that dismissed his case in summary judgment. That's what the Ohio Supreme Court upheld, those summary dismissals. As far as I know, none of this ever went to trial by jury. Ohio has 2 tests when it comes to food seller injury liability. One, asking, was the harmful substance foreign or natural to the food in question? And 2, is there a reasonable expectation that there could be a harmful substance? This case wasn't about a piece of metal or glass or rubber in the chicken. It's also not about a chicken bone being in something like an ice cream sandwich or tomato soup. So that answers both of those questions. It's an imperfect world, and there's nothing negligent about a random bone being in a random piece of meat, like how sometimes you get an onion ring in your Burger King fries. They're all in the same fryer. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. The bottom line on this is caveat emptor, buyer beware. We got to take a break. When we come back, I am very excited for my guest. Filmmaker Cam Miller tells the story of Cincinnati, the Reds, Latonia, the Cincinnati Royals, and more, all coming up. Got some stocks of local interest for you today. You are watching The Working Lunch on The Crown. Big Friday show. Stick around.
Our beliefs matter. They're reflected in our words and actions. At First State Bank, we believe in treating people well, and have since 1884. Listening, caring, looking out for each other. It's what people deserve. It's what a real local bank does. While lots of things have changed over the years, our belief in you hasn't. First State Bank, built on belief.
My name is Jack Crumley. I've been covering news in Cincinnati on the radio for the last 20 years. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, but Cincinnati has always felt like home since day one. I've seen so many things accomplished here, and now, with The Working Lunch, I get to write, read, and talk about them every day. Hard-working people with a drive and a dream. Innovative ideas that help shape this city. Cincinnati is a great city, and I'm excited to tell you about it every day. Welcome back to The Working Lunch. I'm Jack Crumley. Excited to have my guest on the show today. Filmmaker, writer, documentary maker, composer, editor, Cam Miller, historian.
Hey, thank you. There you go.
Cam Miller is joining us on The Working Lunch today, and I wanted to open up with a clip to give people a little flavor of the work that you do. If we can hit that to start us off.
Local broadcast of this program is made possible in part by Johnny's Toys.
Once upon a time, there was a toy shop full of imagination and magic. But what if we could go back to once upon a time?
I just love Johnny's Toys. It's the fun place. Please.
What if we once again used our imagination and believed in a little bit of magic?
So that is a clip from your Johnny's Toys. That's the opening of your Johnny's Toys documentary. Cam, you've been doing filmmaking for 20-odd years in town. What is it that inspires you to pick certain topics and tell stories? How do you find your topics?
Well, it's pretty easy for me because I've always documented things my whole life, and I remember things. I'm a big nostalgia guy. So, for instance, that clip, Johnny's, I went to Johnny's Toys as a kid, and I just happened to live in the same neighborhood as the son of Mr. Johnny.
Oh, wow.
And I got befriend him. He invited me over to his warehouse, and I was like, this is a dream. I'm seeing all of the things that he collected. And again, he's not thinking of it as a story. He's just thinking this was my family business.
Right.
I go in there and I'm like, I see 50 million stories I can tell here. And of course, we take that, we start filming it. He had the original castle door from the Lithonia Johnny, so I took a picture of that, and that's what you saw in the clip. I put it back into the spot where it once stood before the building was torn down.
That's cool.
And you do those things, and it's a domino effect, right? You start doing those things where you're starting to see these nostalgia pieces from your kid, and then you're like, well, I can do a film on this. What about Riverfront? I used to go to Riverfront all the time, and then I do a film on Riverfront. It snowballs, and I love doing it. It's my side gig. To keep the lights on, you do the composing things and the jobs for commercials and things like that. But this thing is my time, my dime. These local history stories it's so important, and it's a passion of mine that I will continue to do as long as I'm breathing this air.
Yeah, and I think that what you're doing, there's a lot of talk. Nostalgia as like a marketing tool is a big thing these days, but it feels like what you're doing specifically, like we saw in that clip from the Johnny's Toys doc, you're not leaning into the nostalgia as a member when to try to make people just yearn for something different. You really are telling a story of things that happened to let people understand where they came from.
Right, and it's specifically with that one. I went there as a kid. My dad took me there, so I, for the first time, incorporated myself into my film and showed 8mm of me crawling around the floor playing with toys and telling the story about how I got sick on the steps and couldn't go meet Darth Vader, but my dad went there to get it for me. And one of the cool stories about that is when I went to meet some of the people that worked there, they gave me an autographed picture of Darth Vader because I lost it over time, and I said, man, I wish I still had that. They showed up and gave me one to say thank you for keeping the story alive of Johnny's.
The idea of Darth Vader signing autographs is extremely fun.
And that's a whole other film I could do about how they got him in, flew him in from New York, and all that went into that. It wasn't just some guy off the street. It was a big deal.
Wow, no kidding.
They had to pay him, put him up in a hotel. It was an actor.
Was it David Prowse, the actual guy, or just some big dude?
Though that'd be hilarious if that was the end of the story, where it was actually David Prowse. He takes his mask off at Scooby-Doo, right? And it's like, what is this about? But the stories that he told, I could have made a Ken Burns 10-part documentary on it. So the good thing is I'm going to screen it again this fall at the Lithonia Library, and we're going to do what I did when I did the original screening for that. I built a castle in my backyard, a replica castle.
Good grief.
And we put it in the coffee house where we did the original screening. And the idea was, as a kid, you went in with your key and you got something out on your birthday. This was, let's fill the castle, put the toys back, and we donate to all these charities around the area.
Oh, that's tremendous.
And it was so rewarding. I mean, that was what it was about. The film was secondhand after that. So I love doing things like that where I can tie in history and also give back to the community.
Yeah, and you've got so many projects that do that. So much of your work is telling stories about this area. There is such a rich history going back a few decades going back, maybe a couple hundred years. There's really interesting stuff to talk about. You've got the Johnny's Toys doc there. You mentioned Latonia is an area that we talked about on the show not too long ago with Billy Maccabee, just about sort of the history of that neighborhood within Covington. And then there's all of your Cincinnati Reds work that you do with the Reds Hall of Fame. You're spinning a lot of different plates, man.
Yeah, and my family will say, you need to slow down, and that just tells me that I need to go harder. I mean, and that's cool. What, like I'd mentioned before we started, I'm working on 5 films right now, and that's normal to me. I mean, that's just, I've composed the music, I'm doing the editing, I'm trying to find things that may be of interest to one film, and I realize, wait a minute, Johnny Bench doesn't belong in the Cincinnati Royals film. Sometimes I have to remember what I'm working on.
I was going to say, you're doing 5 different projects, and so the idea that things could start mashing up and accidentally get Johnny Bench into your Royals piece is rough.
So there might be like a hodgepodge film come out where it's just like everything. Throw that in the stew and see what comes out.
I know the one that you're looking to release relatively soon is your doc on the Cincinnati Royals, and just going onto the internet and looking up old pictures from that tell me that logo that's on the far left there, please tell me, is that showing up in the doc? That's a wild picture.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the first few minutes of the film. Designed by an Enquirer guy, just an amazing, again, the story of the Royals. To think about it, an NBA team in Cincinnati. Right. People can't really compute that now with the way the NBA is. Right. But back then, it was a struggle to sell tickets, and they finally started gaining momentum. But unfortunately, they met their ultimate demise and then moved to Sacramento and became the Sacramento Kings.
How hard is it for you making documentaries about topics like that, about the Royals, to find, primary source material, to find footage, especially for something that only lasted for a little bit and then has been gone for decades?
Yeah, well, again, thankfully the internet exists, because if it didn't, I mean, I have to go on newspapers.com, I have to go to these sites and just dig and dig and dig. I'll spend 7 or 8 hours just accumulating all of these things. But the great thing is I have all these connections throughout the city that I can say, didn't you say that your grandpa used to be the ball boy? And then I'll get that, and then he'll tell his story. And that's what I love. It's not just telling the story in facts, it's telling the story through other stories. You're getting these little things. Like, I'm working on a 1956 documentary right now on the Reds. And Frank Robinson, right? He set the rookie record for home runs. He used to get an apple pie for every home run he hit at the hotel he stayed at. And he had to stay at that hotel because that's the only place he was allowed to stay. So there's a story about that.
Is the hotel giving him the pie?
Yeah, it was on the house. So again, and that's where the film starts. It doesn't start with the cliche, Ted Kluszewski hits a home run over the wall.
Hearing the crack of the bat.
Right. You get this, that starts the film, and you're like, what's that about? Yeah. And then you start going in, and then you're learning something, but you're also, there's that aspect of telling a story within a story where people can, sometimes it can get boring if you're sitting there for 10 hours and people are giving you the TikTok, this is what happened. When you can pepper in some of these human interest things, it captures the imagination of people, and then they're interested in it, and then they're telling that story, and on it goes.
Yeah. You talked about having 5 things that you're working on right now, and then also, things that you do for you versus things that maybe pay the bills. Right. How is it for you? You've been an independent filmmaker in this city for 20-odd years. You also have a Substack that I think is a little bit of income for you, talking about historical things also. But in terms of being a creative and professionally being creative in this city, how is that from a employment perspective? You're paying the bills, it's enough, you can work enough and be paid enough to be creative?
Yeah, I don't live the Steven Spielberg life yet. That's the goal. I'm still waiting for Disney to call me, so Disney, call me, and you can buy me out, and I make some more money to make some more films. But you do what you do. And I always say this, I would rather live in a one room shack with just my video equipment and just make my films with my dogs and just live my life. Because that's, to me, what's important. It's not about how much I can make. I mean, I have to keep the lights on, right? You have to do those things. But it's telling those stories that I always get a kick out of telling a story, and somebody 10 years ago, I just saw your documentary that you put on YouTube that I'd done a long time ago, I'd forgotten it, and then they reminded me, oh, that's right, I did that, and I told my grandkids this story, and now they have it on their phone, and it just keeps going on and on, and that's what I love doing. It's not about how much money I make, it's about continuing that story, especially in the Queen City, because there's so many stories to tell. I'll never run out of material.
Yeah, that's and the idea of wanting to tell something authentically and make sure that you're being true to the source material is sort of an added, I don't want to say challenge, but it's another responsibility that I think you take really seriously.
Yeah, I really try to, and I always 7 or 8 sources, and you're really digging deep. And again, and some people say it's, I may be a control freak, and I've been called that, but the thing I always say is, A painter gets to paint his picture and paint his masterpiece, and he doesn't hire somebody to do the blues. He doesn't bring somebody in to do the oranges. He does all of it, and he knows when he sits back that work stands on its own. I painted that masterpiece. And I always set out to do that with every one of my films, to compose the music, edit it, get the sound, do it all. Sometimes it's difficult, but I don't think I would have it any other way because it's my vision. I know what I want to do, and it cuts out a lot of the hassle of having to do other things. Again, the problem with that is that you do 5 films, you just kind of go crazy sometimes. But I love what I do.
Well, and also that's a little bit sort of in the face too of like what a small business filmmaking can be, and how film directors and independent film people specifically have to have such an entrepreneurial mindset, and working with other folks, and the idea that everybody comes together to execute the director's vision on stuff. You're handling turning every knob.
Yeah, you don't know how many times I got in an argument with the sound guy, and it would happen to be me. How many times I've composed a piece and I'm like, that didn't sound right. I got to talk to that guy. Oh, wait a minute, that was me. I do have a great relationship with a guy that works in Detroit, Oakland University, and I'll compose a piece of music and I'll send it to him, and he'll, for credit for some of his kids, he'll record that for me as a credit. So they'll send me back that music so I can have actual violins and cellos and timpanis and trombones. So some of that stuff is me composing it, sending it off, and having it sent back. And it's free because it's a credit for them for their classes. So it's a win-win situation.
Well, and also the idea that you are connecting with people that actually do things. You know, obviously generative AI is something that gets talked about a lot, and you are working in the creative field. There's a separate conversation about the way that everybody having a video camera in their pocket has like democratized media. But then on top of that now, just typing a few words into a computer and letting it make something for you. You, as someone who is taking the time to get a real musician on the phone and to find the real door from Johnny's Toys and put it in place, like that's putting in the work, and that's part of the process.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It hurts my business, and it has hurt my business the last few years because of AI. And it's not something that, I have to pay attention to it, but till the day I don't exist on this earth, I will always continue to do the work and do actual authentic things. It's just my style. It's what I grew up on. My dad took me to see Star Wars in the theaters, and I'm seeing this, and all of these things looked like a place I could touch. I could touch the Falcon. And I knew as time went on, there was things you could tell. And as we've gone on, that AI is kind of taken over. Like you said, push a button, and then some 12-year-olds win an Oscar because so I'm the opposite. I love going out, doing the work, meeting real people, tangible things, because I feel that's the soul of filmmaking. It's the soul of everything, but especially the arts, music and film. I want it to be authentic as possible till the bitter end.
Yeah, it's all that stuff is called the humanities.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
There's a reason for that. Hey, we got to take a break. We got more with filmmaker Cam Miller. I want to talk about your work with the Reds Hall of Fame, how you choose projects, and a lot more coming up. Cam Miller on The Working Lunch. Stick around, more to come.
Okay, who are you? Well, you have a First State Bank checking account, so you'll be getting cash back whenever you use it. Oh.
Open a checking account at First State Bank for cash back. First State Bank, built on belief.
How did you get in here?
What is The Crown? It's simple, really. Authentic Cincinnati entertainment. Not hot takes from a studio 3 states away. Not national noise pretending to know this city. Rather, bringing a voice to those who call the Queen City home. Where can I watch The Crown shows? Join us live from 7 to 11 a.m. for First Word and 12 to 1 for the Working Lunch on RESN. No live TV? No problem. Stream and interact with all of our content on major podcast, broadcast, and streaming platforms. The Crown is Cincinnati. Loud, passionate, competitive, proud. From early morning sports debates to the business leaders shaping the riverfront, to the fans, stories, moments, and culture that make this place move. Live shows, podcasts, documentaries, digital content built from Cincinnati, for Cincinnati. This is The Crown.
Welcome back to the Working Lunch. I'm Jack Crumley, joined by local filmmaker, historian Cam Miller, joining us here on the program. Cam, how did your work with the Reds develop? You've been working with the Reds, specifically the Reds Hall of Fame, for a number of years now. You have a ton of work that you've produced for them. How did all that come about, in addition to all the other work that you do?
Well, that's kind of where I got my start. I mean, I was working there in education. They needed a film. I said, can you do this? And I said, sure. And I did it. And then when I left the Reds and started Cam Miller Films, they kept calling and saying, can you do this? And I said, I absolutely can do this. And I've been doing it for 20 years now. Some of the most fun experiences there. One of the great things I did was I did a film on Crossley Field for them. And Eleanor Klazuski, she was in the stands and she's crying. And I'm like, uh-oh, what have I done? Yeah. I made her cry. She came up to me afterwards, thank you so much for bringing Big Teddy back. Because she hadn't seen him in so long, right? So especially in action, it was like, so I brought that back. And I knew then, when that happened, I was destined to do this for them. So they always have given me projects that I continue to do. I love every single one I do for them, because it's just so much fun to live in that world and to talk about old baseball all the time. I love it.
Yeah, and so much of what you do, too, has such a strong, emotional component. Obviously, that's going to be part and parcel when you're doing documentary stuff and nostalgia-based things. Does it ever really surprise you when somebody has a strong emotional reaction like that?
Absolutely, because I lived at that clip for 2 years. I'm watching it over and over. I'm in there drinking pots of coffee, churning out the content, and then when it's already on the screening day, and it's like, you've already put in all the work, let's just see what happens. And I'm nervous because I'm like, what's the reaction going to be? But when you get somebody like that, the wife of a legend like that, and you think that it's bad news, but she comes up to you, takes your hand, says, Cam, thank you for bringing Teddy back. That was the moment for me when I realized I'm doing something important, not just sharing history and facts and figures, but the human element. It always comes back to that. And that was one of those moments I'll never forget.
I want to ask you about, in that vein, when you are picking stories and you've picked a topic to tell about, and the detail that you're choosing to go into, in the 1978 Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, Perry White is talking to Lois, or Jimmy's talking to Lois, and he says, gee, Miss Lane, how do you get such great stories? And she says, a good reporter doesn't get great stories, Jimmy. A good reporter makes them great. And for you, if you're telling a story, how much of it is letting the thing sort of speak for itself versus, the urge to want to zhuzh it up a little bit and maybe make things compelling?
Right. I've been so honored and blessed and humbled that it very rarely happens where I'm like, I have a thing here, but I need to dig a little deeper. One thing happens, and this was something that happened when I made my Covington Blue Sox film. The Covington Blue Sox were an independent professional baseball team that played in Covington in 1913. They lasted 4 months. But the city was so bound and determined to have a professional baseball team. Unfortunately, they weren't allowed to have a professional baseball team because the Reds, and there was a thing called the 5-mile clause, which means you can't play within 5 miles. But they had a minor league team, so they could get away with it. And once they did that, it was this one story led to another story. This person went to the game. The guys were coming home from the steel factories and helping build the stadium so it was done in time for opening day. It's like I didn't have to do any work for that. It was just playing out in the newspapers of 1913 for me day by day. I just took that, put visuals to it, which was difficult at the time because there's no team pictures. I mean, I had to create the art and draw them out, do the field. I actually redesigned the field, the blueprints, and was able to present it to the great-grandson of the architect that built the park in 1913. It's things like that. And again, going back to the Kluszewski, doing things like that, it's that human element that you're touching somebody else, and they're never going to forget that. And I didn't have to put in hardly any work. It was just pay attention to what's out there and figure out that story. That way I don't have to kind of build it up and try to make it any more exciting. The excitement's there in black and white.
Yeah. Do you find yourself needing to creatively separate out topics that you're going to make a film about versus something you're going to write about in your Substack? How does that hierarchy go?
Right. I mean, that's a great question. Most of the time, the Substack stuff is because I know I'll never get to do a film while I still got my, wits about me. I know that I'll never get to that stuff. So I can take that stuff, like a history of all of the train stations in Cincinnati. I would never get to tell that on film, but I can put that in my Substack, and I can put in, this train station was here. Now this is where Paul Brown Stadium is, or Paycor Stadium, or Great American Ballpark, or Riverfront, whatever the stadiums were. There was all of these stations and tracks, and people will always ask, what's that track go to? And well, here's the story of it. And then you put that on there, knowing I won't get to do it visually, I'll be able to tell that story, so that's kind of like my outlet for the things that I can't do. But sometimes I am able to take my films and build upon it. So if I'm doing a film like the 1937 flood, for instance, I can do a story that digs deeper into it that I couldn't tell in the film.
Well, and you have to be able to recognize what story lends itself to something visual or just writing words down.
Exactly. That's a great point. And I do that. I probably do 3 or 4 a week that I've got saved up for later that I know, well, that's not going to work for the film, but let me file this away because that's going to make a great story.
Is it difficult for you to balance between doing something that's maybe more for you on the creative side versus something that's going to pay the bills?
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. It's not an easy thing at all because I know that once I'm paying the bills, I'm doing those jobs. I know that in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking about, man, I'm doing a film on the Esquire, and I really can't wait to get that movie poster from eBay so I can shoot that shot. There's always something churning about the next thing going on, and with all those films I'm doing, it makes it hard, but I know I've 20 years of doing this, you learn the balance, and that's the key, learning how to balance everything out without going crazy.
Yeah, what a fun balance that is.
I know.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with, as far as the documentary work goes and the way you are able to find primary source material, but I know what a struggle that can be. Again, we're talking about some things that are a few decades old, maybe a couple 100 years old. Is there a time that you have a memory of that was like the worst moment of, boy, I can't find anything to make this work, what do I do, and what's the way out?
Yeah, I did a film on the Covington Stars, another baseball team in 1875. They played baseball. They're the reason actually that the 5-mile rule exists.
Oh, wow.
That's the reason why, because Cincinnati Reds said, we got to make up a rule when we start the National League in 1876. Lo and behold, Big Brother across the river did what they did. And it was a complete business decision, and you can't fault them for that. But there was no photographs of any of these players, none. And I had to draw them myself and put them on there. And what other choice do you have, right? You got to make a film, you got to have some visuals.
Yeah.
So I started doing the blueprints to the stadiums. I started all the fields they played. I made up all of these box scores and kind of animated them to make them. You have to do something to liven it up. There wasn't anything going on in 1875. People weren't pulling out their phones and saying, let me film this home run hit by this guy.
Nobody cared about ball
Nobody
players.
cared.
You would go to the game, but it wasn't like you were tracking stats.
You go to the game, you have a few beers, you go home, and you get ready for the job the next day. And it was all daytime, too, because there was no night baseball, of course, back then. So it's a struggle sometimes, and I always think, why did I start this? But then at the end of the day, when you've got a half-hour film, 45-minute film, and you're like, this tells a great story. And then you see that reaction when you do a premiere at a theater or at a library or anywhere where I've shown my films. You get that reaction, and you're just like, that's why I did it. And I love doing it, and I'll continue to do it.
We've got a little something here to put up for you. There we go. That's right, your stat about the Reds and the World Wide Web. This is amazing.
Isn't it crazy?
That is a wild stat, and you're dipping into all sorts of information about the Reds and baseball history, and you're doing this. You said you've got a new one now that you're doing about the Reds in the 50s.
Yep, 1956. I'm doing a film on them. I've got a Finley and Western film on the spot where Crosley Field was. That's a big project. That's going to be fun because I've pinpointed where Babe Ruth hit a home run, the cobblestone that it hit. and I'm still trying to get the city of
Now,
Cincinnati.
how do you find that?
It's so remarkable. The attention to detail in newspapers. It went over the center field wall and it bounced up and hit off this building, and a child stood it. I found out where the child was standing because there was a cop standing there he was talking to. And I got the family's remembrance of that. I'm able to do the math, which I wasn't the best at in high school, but I've learned how to be good for my films.
Yeah.
And you find where the cobblestone was. Now the catch is, how do I get the city of Cincinnati to let me take my jackhammer down there, dig up that cobblestone, and use that as an effect for part of my film? Don't think I haven't tried.
Yeah. Speaking of
Still working on that.
Yeah. Speaking of creative walls that one runs into.
Yep.
Was it difficult to take off your Sherlock Holmes hat to wear that one when you came in today?
100%. And by the way, let me just say for the record that I understand this Casual Friday. This is Casual Friday. When I do my films, it's using a smoking jacket and a pipe.
Right on. Listen, it's important to me that the guest looks good. Boy, Cam, you got so much different going on. Anything else you want to promote that's coming up?
A lot coming out. I guess the best thing I would say is go to YouTube, Cam Miller Films, go to Twitter, Facebook, Google Cam Miller Films. Most of it's true. I'm on there. You can find me. You'll see my Substack. You'll see all those things. I'm working on a lot of different things right now, and the holiday season is going to be fun because I'm doing the Johnny's tour back again, and we're going to redo that for charities. We're going to do the film. I'm also working on a book for that. We're going to do a little small book.
What? And don't you have pets and like
I
a
have
wife and
pets
kids
a
and stuff?
The pets are my great. They're on Team Cam Miller Films, so they sit there and at the meetings and they chew their bones and they approve yes or no. This is not going to work. So I've got a good office staff at home.
Wow. And then do we have a released? Oh, speaking of pets, there it is. There's
yes,
your buddy Lincoln. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, thank you. He would have been 10 today. Good dude. He was my best friend. He'd been in office for 9 years. He didn't quite make it to 10. Every single day, he would be in my office laying in bed, and I would look over and I would know that I'm doing something right or I'm doing something wrong, because there's nothing like the love of a pet to keep you on the right track.
Do you ever think about like doing something pet-related film-wise?
I've got 3 that I've been offered, and I'm thinking about it. So when I'm 85, I'll be back on this show, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, well, listen, I'd like to have you back before you're 85. Cam Miller, local filmmaker, local historian, really fascinating guy, and a lot of stuff posted for people just to be able to watch on your YouTube page.
Just for free, yeah. All of my local films are free on YouTube. Go
Check
there and
it all
watch
out. Cam Miller Films, really wonderful stuff. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack.
We are going to take a break. We got more Working Lunch coming your way when we return. Stick around.
Our beliefs matter. They're reflected in our words and actions. At First State Bank, we believe in treating people well, and have since 1884. Listening, caring, looking out for each other. It's what people deserve. It's what a real local bank does. While lots of things have changed over the years, our belief in you hasn't. First State Bank, built on belief.
This is the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritchner. Your home for college basketball in the Cincinnati area and across the country every Monday through Friday during the season. Previews, recaps, breakdowns, interviews, and more. You can find it all right here. Your one-stop shop for a quick dose of college hoops on your morning commute. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, my name is Natalie Jones, a Cincinnati native, and I have been in media for about 10 years now. Formerly on the radio here in Cincinnati, I grew my love and obsession with finding all things fun in Cincinnati and have now made it my life. I'm originally from the west side here, and then I've pretty much been a downtown girl ever since college. But I did leave for 7 years, and during that time, I really grew and harnessed and cut my teeth doing stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, learning how to ski in Colorado, and now I'm back here in Cincinnati, driven by curiosity and grounded by family.
Show, wrapping things up on a Friday. I want to give a special shout out to my parents. That is Farrell and Janet Crumley, a photo from back in the day. They have just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. They were married in 1976. Big hand for them. Yes, absolutely. Married in 1976 in Northeast Ohio. That's a picture of them dressed as Dickens characters. I guess it was a Christmas-related thing, but heck if I know. 1976 when they were married. That's when Apple was founded. The largest company in the U.S. in 1976 was an oil company. Spoiler alert, it was Exxon. 1976 was when the NBA merged with the ABA. The unemployment rate was above 7% back then. Janet Farrell Crumley deciding to get married. Average cost of a new home, 1976, anybody? $43,000. My sister and I, both very lucky to have them as parents. Those of you who are watching, you're lucky too, because there was a lot of my folks in me in making this show, and just wanted to give a big shout out to them. 50 years of wedded bliss. Hey, it is a Friday. We got a couple of minutes left. Movies coming out this weekend. You know, Spider-Man Brand New Day is making all of the money. It will continue to make all of the money. We do have a release of a movie called Tony. This is Dominic Sessa. You've probably seen some ads for this. There he is on the left, playing Anthony Bourdain in a movie about Anthony Bourdain's life, specifically the story of Anthony Bourdain's summer 1975 in the book Kitchen Confidential, which is a great book. I had the pleasure of seeing Anthony Bourdain speaking here at the Aronov like 15 years ago. He's a brilliant storyteller. It is a true shame that he's gone. Whenever we talk about topics like this, I always like to say that if you or anyone you know is struggling, there is help available. The Suicide and Crisis Hotline is 988. Call or text that at any time. Anthony Bourdain was a one-of-a-kind talent, and it's a shame he's gone. The movie about a little bit with his life is coming out this weekend. Also coming out this weekend is Super Troopers 3, which I'm a huge Super Troopers fan, but I got to tell you, the trailer for 3 looks bad. Just watch 1 and 2 is my best advice to you. Or maybe it's great. Go to the theater, take a chance, check it out. Big fan of encouraging people to take chances by going to the movies. Speaking of movies, I'd like to thank my guest, Cam Miller, local filmmaker, historian, interesting guy that is putting in the work to be a creative professional here in the Cincinnati area. Check out all of his work, Cam Miller Films. Look him up on YouTube. You'll see some really cool and interesting stuff. He's a guy that clearly cares about this area and wants to tell the story of it, and he's able to do that in a professional way, and I respect that quite a bit. I want to thank all my guests from this past week. Really interesting stuff, some really heavy hitters on that I had some great conversations with. You can check all of our work out. CincyCrown.com is the website. We have various clips posted. Also, the Working Lunch on YouTube is another resource for you. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts. You can stream us live or on demand at that website, cincycrown.com. You're watching us over the air, also Altifiber and on Spectrum. Here's all the different shows that we have. You're going to be going into the weekend. If you're looking for stuff to check out, certainly plenty of clips from First Word from all the shows they did this week. I thought the Paul Fritchner bit during Condapelli's Countdown today was a riot. Nat tries that with new stuff out there. The Nat Jones Show has new stuff coming out. Paul Fritchner himself producing Rebound Rundown content as we get closer to basketball season. Paul's going to be a busy guy this fall. Good luck to him on all that. Thanks very much for watching. Appreciate your time checking all of it out. You know, we are building something here on The Crown, and it means a lot to me. Every one of you that's watching things, that's sharing things, we love it. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.